Hi, it's Juris and welcome to Tattoo Shop Talk, and today we will take a look at these battery grips from Inkclaw. They are called the Novelty battery grips. The name of these is Phoenix and they have updated versions. We looked at previous version before, which was version 1.0, and this one is version 1.5, and this one is sort of next generation after this one. This one is version 1.5 and it's intended to be worked with bar needles, and there's some improvements in this one, and this one is Inkclaw Phoenix 2.0. It's intended to be worked with cartridge needles. This one I have put on Dan Cuban Signwinder V3R. And this is pretty easy way how to convert this tattoo machine to work with cartridges and to have it wireless. And the main intention with this one and previous version is to make your tattoo machines wireless and make them sort of tip grip heavy. And I will do my usual. I will review them, I'll do all the ups, downs, and who this machine might be for. And at the end I will share my little hack how I sort of improved this tattoo machine to make it more safe in terms of hygiene. While editing I realized I probably should put this in. I'm not trying to sell the product, I'm trying to show the product, and I explain how I used it and how it worked for me. I used them mainly with Dan Cuban Signwinder. I used it a bunch of times and nothing happened. I used it once with the machine, with the magnetic one from Q. Some weird stuff happened, it got really hot, and the manufacturer of machines said that maybe don't use them with battery packs because they might be underpowered or something, even though by numbers they are like up to 3.5 amps and should be fine. I tried to replicate it, just setting up machine, running it, it didn't happen again. Still, it did happen. If you have some unusual machines you want to check with manufacturers, would they recommend anything like that or not? I tried them on coils just for sake of trying it, but I just ran them for an hour to see how it drains the battery. And that's another thing to keep in mind. I don't work on daily basis with coil machines. I have few of them. I just tested how it works. So I don't know how battery packs and jump start type of things can affect. Well, that's optional. You can switch it on and off. But that's something to keep in mind, that I'm just sharing my experience. And if you know how this can affect like coil machines, how battery packs would work with coil machines, what kickstart can do with them if you choose to use one, if you know that, then please leave that in the comment section so we all know. Now I don't use coil machines at all. I just have them to test them on this type of things. I set up one and ran for around an hour to see how battery drains. I think it was this one. Another thing with coil machines is that this part, it has to be quite close, so you have to figure out how to get it where you want it to be. .6 volts. Yeah, I ran it like that for around an hour and it drained battery halfway. How healthy it is to coils, I don't know. If you know, let us know. I don't know much about how these things can interfere and affect each other, so please keep that in mind. Also, I like to mess with things and I change stuff in them. I try what would work better. Don't go with power tools at your stuff. Do it at your own risks, and better don't do it. Don't do it just because you saw some guy doing it on internet. I just share my thoughts and trying to prove my concepts mainly to myself. If you find it useful, then obviously thank you. And if you have some input and some potential tip not to damage your or somebody else's equipment, I do stress, please leave that in the comment section. This is a quick kind of disclaimer. I'm just sharing my experience here. I will do my thing and you decide is it something for you or not. These grips were sent to me by Inkclaw, but no money have exchanged hands and I don't have to say anything good or bad about them. And also Inkclaw have not seen this video beforehand, so we all see it first time. And now let's get to the review. Let's get the obvious out of the way, hygiene. If you're coming from the world of disposable grips and autoclaves, this is not something for you. I don't think you will even pay attention to this product unless in future for one or another reason you get curious and decide to try. This is pretty fun product. Even if you don't use it for tattoo work, you can play around with tattoo machines and do all sorts of stuff. And I have mentioned this before that, for example, in Denmark this would tick all the boxes in terms of hygiene on paper. By regulations, if you can wipe it down, if you can somewhat pack it, it's all good. And that's why you see every now and then that some of pen type tattooists barely wrap their machines and it's fine. and buy the paper, it actually is. Is it a good practice? Is it not? That's for every individual to decide, and that's something to check with your local authorities, with health and safety institutions, what are the rules and what standards are at the place where you're working. Price of the product, 179 to 189 US. There might be some tax involved depending on like shipping rules on the country where you are, and the price differs on what connection type you choose. There's RCA. There's also clipcord now, which makes a difference, and now you can use it with more types of machines. This one by Dan Cuban, and you can also use it in coils, and you can also get that weird DC connector. I haven't seen a machine that uses that, but it's in there, that's an option, and the small clipcord is what made me excited. Oh yeah, and speaking of magnets, this connection, how you put the final cord to it, it has this nice snappy magnet thing. Boom. That feels super nice to do it. And I am a fan of magnets. Power adjustment goes from 3 to 15 volts, and it should be at 3.5 amps max, which should be plenty for many machines. Is it actually like that? I don't know, I don't have tools to check it. There's also on the screen this little amp meter, and when you run it, it shows at what amps it's at the moment. This one shows 0.60, 0.25, 0.60. I don't know if those numbers make sense because I'm not too much into all the electric side of things. And in a box, when you receive it, the model that you get to work with bar needles, it have these tubes that goes in there, and there's two sizes of them, a bunch of cables depending on what variation you choose, a little Allen key to change those tubes, and charging cable. For bar needles, tubes look like this, and this is where this part screws on, and that's the part that fixes tip in place, so it screws on this one, and there's two lengths of those tubes. Same situation for the cartridge needle type. On the bar needle machine, this part screws on. For cartridge needles, it sort of clips off, and that's where the cartridge fits in. Boom. And you can sanitize, sterilize, throw those things in autoclaves, that's all good. And you can also remove that back tube and process that part. It's more important for work with bar needles, and you can process, sanitize it, sterilize it, autoclave it. For cartridge needles, it seems less of an issue. Weight and size you can see on the screen, or go to their webpage and check what they say there. It's also stressed on their webpage that now there's changeable inner tube for sterilization. You see, they pay attention to that, they pay attention to what users are recommending. Battery life is around 3-4 hours, and it has quick charge where it can charge back up in around 30-40 minutes, and you can run it for 3-4 hours again. And once again, I want to point out that little clip cord, because you can convert now many machines to work with cartridge needles. That would be with cartridge needle grip. And you can make any tattoo machine wireless. I'm talking about both grips. And for Dan Cuban machine, you can also do that thing where you flip the clip cord other way around, so that gives a bit softer or a bit harder hit. And that would work also on coil machines. And maybe you don't use some coil machines because you are used to all the like wireless life. So now with these grips, you can make your good old coils also wireless tattoo machines and get back that sweet noise in your shop if you miss it. And speaking of converting tattoo machines to work with cartridge needles, and they were not intended at first like that, I want to point out that also Inkclaw sells cartridges with different tensions, and that is something to pay attention to, how much there is resistance of cartridge needles. And for coils and these Dan Cuban type of machines, it would be recommended to have a bit softer membrane on the cartridges. That's also something you can check out on Inkclaw's webpage. Neat that now we have option like that as well. Let's do all the good stuff. How it feels in the hand. For me, it feels really nice. I like the weight of it. I like the thickness of it. And once you figure out how to wrap it, it's pretty comfortable. It's all there. My issue with layout like this is that the button that makes it run and stop and switches it on and off gets in the way. Once you figure out where it is and maybe play around with the grip, you can put it in different ways depending on how you want cartridge to sit. Then you can adjust this part and find the most comfortable place for you, where it's comfortable to reach, but you will not press it by accident. Or more like you will not switch it off by accident. And it feels as it's intended to be, sort of tip heavy. That's also something I like. You have to figure out how to wrap it, because if it's just plastic then it gets slippery, but a bit of grip tape, in some creative ways how to put it on, or you need a thinner grip tape so you can still see what's going on screen. There's also kickstart on these things. If you press up and down for voltage, a little lightning bolt appears. I'm pretty sure it's not healthy for these type of machines and coils to have a kickstart, but for cartridge needle machines it's all good, and it can help you a bit if you want to run tighter cartridge, especially at lower voltage. And buttons are small, but they are tactile enough and you can feel them. And you can also feel them when it's wrapped and have few layers of grip tape on. So that's all good. And also in the good news that there are more parts that you can detach and they are safe to be autoclaved, sterilized, sanitized, all that good stuff that you want for hygiene. And now let's slowly slide into cons, and one of them is that accidental press of button. Not a big deal, but when it happens in front of customer and customer is like, oh, what happened with your machine? Like, did it run out of power? Did you broke it? Or something like that, and that's a bit uncomfortable. Another downside I would say is that this unit feels a bit too long. I understand that there's the tip and there's the batteries on inside and all that stuff, but it kind of feels that it sits too close to tattoo machine. And there are changeable tubes, but you can only extend it by that much. You can't get this part shorter, and you can see there's around half a centimeter difference. It's less of an issue on a cartridge machine. On this one you can see how close I have to put it, and that's not something I'm used to work with. It kind of works fine for me. It sits nice here on the wrist and it's comfortable, but it's kind of like if there would be an issue, there's no place for wiggle. And depends how big your hands are and how you hold your machine. For some, it might get in the way. Or if you want your needle like crazy out. And for use with regular needles, with needle bars, you would still remove needle through the back. And that's where it's risk of cross-contamination. The thing that you can remove the tube and scrub it and autoclave it, that's a good thing. Okay, before who this machine might be for, I'll show you my little hack what I did. And it worked. It's not perfect, you have to adjust things, and I communicated with people with Inkclaw and they don't mind the idea. And I think it would be great if it would be right away from factory like that. So that's the tube where needle tips would fit in, and it looks like that. And what I did, I made it look like that. With some magic of power tools. Now this part goes in here. In a perfect world there might be a little screw to make it sort of not to go anywhere, but it's not really going, but just for peace of mind it would be awesome. And as you can see, there's nothing in the back. I removed that part, and then there is this type of tip. This one I yanked out from one disposable grip and it fits perfect. We end up with something that looks like that. Let's clip it in. And when you're done working, you disassemble your machine and this whole part is disposable, so the inner tube and tip goes out. Now a little problem that I encountered was that I yanked out this one from some disposable grip that I had, so that's the inner part of it. Once I ordered those things, oh yeah, and to make it not to move and go anywhere, you just tighten the screw down here, and now this part is held by the screw and this part is held in, the metal part is held in by this part, and it's all solid and it's all in there. Now the downside was when I ordered these tips, grips, tubes, whatever they are called myself, they all look the same, but they're not the same. Because this is the one that I yanked out of a disposable grip. So this one fits in there and fits just fine. It slides through this part and it slides through this part with a bit of tension, but you can get it in there. Once I ordered them, they don't go in there as far. My solution would go with the drill. I just need a bigger drill because I spent doing this for way too long. The factory thing could be just to make that tube in there a tiny bit wider. And then there would be no issues with cleaning the inside of it, or basically disposing the whole tube and tip thing. I also communicated with Inkclaw and they have also some ideas what to do with it. So there will be solution for that in the future. At the moment it's also pretty cool and ticks all the boxes of my preferences. There was something tricky with machine with Q. It worked fine, but it worked for 10 seconds. And one of the biggest cons that happened, and I tried to replicate it, but it didn't happen again, but it's a scary thing and I don't want to risk it with machine like this one from Q. So what happened was I set it up and it was just laying on a table and the grip was charged up, and when I started to work with it, it worked fine, but it worked for something like 10 seconds and it switched off and I was like, this is strange, I know I charged it. And then I noticed that the whole machine got crazy hot and it was just laying on the table, and I made 2 lines or 1 line with it and it switched off. I asked manufacturer of this tattoo machine, he said maybe don't use those grips. He said it might be because they are underpowered, because power supplies are usually 2 amps and up. said this might not be enough because batteries are usually not that powerful, even though their webpage states that it's 3.5 amp. What happened in that situation, I don't know. It was just resting there. I tried to do it again to see what happened. I have it charged up laying. I tried to push buttons. I tried to work it. It never happened again, but still, you have to pay attention to it, especially with these interesting type of machines. Maybe there was too much magnets happening around, or I don't know. It is something that happened, and if you have some of these different unique types of tattoo machines with magnets and whatnot, it's something to pay attention to. I have no explanation for that, but it's scary when your machine gets so hot that you can't even touch it. With not much working with it, with making one line, and for the rest of the time it was just resting on a station. And now who this grip might be for. It would be definitely for someone who wants to convert their tattoo machine to wireless, especially like the coil types. If you work with needle bars, then it would be this solution. And here it's all tip heavy and wireless. Obviously, if this makes sense for you in terms of hygiene. And with this unit, for anyone who would like to convert their tattoo machines to cartridge systems, be it coils, I worked with this Dan Cuban machine a few times. As I mentioned, be careful with machines like that. I have no explanation what happened, but it got really warm. I will leave it like this and see, maybe it will happen again, but I haven't replicated it. Like I said, I tried to run it, leave it, and it didn't get warm again. But when it did first time got warm, it got crazy warm, like you could barely touch it. And if you're converting your tattoo machines to cartridges, then don't forget that there are different tensions of cartridge needles, and you can check on Inkclaw website. If you're converting something like coils, then you want to get cartridges that are with softer membrane, be it from Inkclaw or your local supplier. And that's also for somebody who wants to get rid of pedals, cables, and move machines weight to the front, because otherwise any battery solution would attach to the back of machine, and that may change weight distribution. It's not a big problem for me, but for somebody it might be. For example, for some health issues or those carpal tunnel things, or maybe working for too long with inappropriate equipment. There could be many reasons. So with this you can get that unleashed lifestyle. How cool it sounds. It is an unusual product, so you have to figure out few things: where buttons are located, how to wrap it. Once you figure that out, it's pretty easy to use. I find that it takes for me a bit longer to pack, and I have to figure out how to pack few things, how to get cable in the way so it doesn't get on the moving parts. In my opinion, it's something you have to get used to. Once you figure that out, it's all good. It is a unique product, and in my opinion, it's not for everyone, but for some it might extend their career by a bit. For example, for some stubborn tattoo artists who don't want to switch to pen type machines, they don't want to try cartridges, they want to use their good old bar needles, and that's what they used to. But let's say with time your health gives in. I have worked with people who had some issues with hands, and if they don't want to try cartridge systems, pen type machines, then this could be a good solution, and that might extend their career for a few years, getting rid of pedal, getting rid of cables that gets in the way, and have a weight at the right place on a tattoo machine. I would say specific product for specific issue. And this could be also an option for people who work with dragonflies or this type of tattoo machines, and they want them wireless, but they don't want any weight at the back. So this solution would convert it to cartridge needles and have all the weight at the front and all the buttons there, because some don't like when it sticks out like that at the back. Technically, working with them like that, it's not an issue, but the thing where it gets in the way, in my opinion, it looks funny, and I noticed that, so it's a small issue. And now you, share your thoughts. Does this product have a future? What improvements could be made? And who do you think this would be helpful for? That you can leave in the comment section, and do the usual. Press like, subscribe to the channel. If you want to be super awesome, share this video, and check out this video up here. That one will be about these cartridge needles with the different tension. That would be awesome with this type of products on something like coil machine. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the future videos. Bye! Subscribe.